Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 30 greatest horror video games ever made. BioShock.
They told me, son, you're special.
We can understand why some may not classify BioShock as a true horror game. It's more of a thriller than anything else, although there are many aspects of it that kind of let it teeter closer to the side of being a horror game. No matter how many times you play it, the lighting and atmosphere of BioShock is deeply disturbing and gut-wrenching regardless of how beautiful the underwater environment may seem. Everything is in disarray. Splices and Big Daddies lurk around every corner, and the audio tapes force you to imagine the terrifying events that occurred when this supposed utopia was alive. Really, you don't need to rely on jump scares to be considered one of the greatest horror games of all time. Alone in the Dark. Though the IP has largely and frequently fallen by the wayside for the majority of its history, there's no denying the greatness Alone in the Dark once had. The 1992 original MS-DOS game was revolutionary both for PC gaming and the horror genre as a whole. From the 3D graphics to the haunting environments, Alone in the Dark was laying the foundations of survival horror before our very eyes way back then. Sure, age hasn't been exactly kind to it when it comes to controls and visuals, but because of that, this legendary title has become a pretty important time capsule for now and I guess always. Clock Tower. The convention for video games as a whole is to throw different types of enemies at you to keep you on your toes, always having to adapt to new situations. The thing about Clock Tower was that you didn't have several enemies to deal with. Instead, you had one enemy, one that was constantly in pursuit of you and hiding in random places. This is what made Clock Tower such a memorable experience for so many players. Not only did you have to manage resources, you had to be smart about your means of escaping the dreaded Scissor Man. It's just a shame that more horror games haven't bothered to try to replicate this style of survival horror gaming. Except Alien Isolation, and Amnesia, and Outlast, and Resident Evil 2 Remake, and Resident Evil 3 Remake. Alright, this game was pretty revolutionary. Tormented Souls.
It's been 2 weeks since I received that letter from the Wildberger Hospital. Since then, I haven't been fine.
It's hard to imagine anyone topping the likes of modern survival horror giants like Resident Evil or Silent Hill, let alone matching their level of quality. But Tormented Souls bucked that trend and did so with flying colors. While it utilizes old aspects of classic horror gaming such as fixed camera angles, Tormented Souls does it in a way that feels modern with supreme controls and clever puzzle designs that go beyond a simple scavenger hunt. It's honestly no wonder why fans have been so hyped for the sequel. Amnesia: The Bunker. If you grew up with the original Amnesia game, The Dark Descent, you might say that it is the best game in the franchise, and understandably so. However, we believe The Bunker to be the best entry in the series, and this isn't because we prefer horror games with single stalker-type enemies. Alright, I guess it is. The Bunker manages to maintain the terror by imposing a timer on you, forcing you to constantly play dangerously rather than hide in places for extended periods of time. Your actual safety is on the clock, and the further you are from safe rooms and the more time you spend being overly safe, the more risky it'll be to venture further out. You have to play smart and set aside fear if you're going to make it out alive, and few games ever manage to instill that level of fear. Mouthwashing. It might be the most bizarre horror game on this list, but it is definitely a modern classic that'll haunt you for years to come. Mouthwashing is best experienced with as little information as possible, so allow us to provide a brief synopsis. Developed by Wrong Organ, Mouthwashing tells the story of a crew of space freighters who have crashed into an asteroid and have found all of their resources to be inaccessible or destroyed in the process. All that they have left to survive is the cargo they were meant to transport, a large supply of mouthwash. What follows are a series of surreal and disturbing events that make mouthwashing a grotesque experience that you might not recover from. I have no mouth and I must scream.
What hellhole did that godless machine put me in this time?
Funny how I Have No Mouth, the game, has become about as famous as, if not more, than the short story it's based on. In a world where humanity has completely collapsed under the weight of artificial intelligence, 6 of the last humans alive must suffer through horrible fantasies created by an electronic tormentor. Despite its age, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is still traumatizing today with its themes of isolation, war, automation, and the ultimate meaningless of life itself. It is a very grim story and one that is not recommended for the faint of heart. But if you can stomach it, it is one of the most brilliantly written and well-designed horror games ever made, even with its age.
Too bad, Dad.
Signalis. While we're on the subject of artificial intelligence, Signalis is one of those horror games that gets real as you progress. You play as S.T.A.L.K.E.R, an android that sets out to find her pilot, only to find that most of the crew is either missing or dead. The only remnants still alive are other androids. Signalis paints a rather bleak story that explores loss and grief and how those feelings can wind up amplifying pain more under certain conditions. Whether you're fond of retro-style horror games or are looking for a game that's thought-provoking, Signalis will not disappoint you. Just don't be surprised if you wind up going a bit existential during your time with it. Five Nights at Freddy's.
There's nothing to worry about. You'll be fine. So let's just focus on getting you through your first week, okay?
When Five Nights at Freddy's suddenly dropped on Steam, no one knew how massive this game was about to get. Rather than fight or run away from enemies, the game forced players to sit in a room with limited resources. Simply put, survive the night and do what you can to prevent animatronics from reaching you. It was unlike any other horror game we'd ever seen before, and the sequels that followed it showed that there were a ton of different ways to mix up the formula several times over. Since then, the franchise has only gotten bigger with spin-off games, books, and even movies. Left 4 Dead 2.
Through here.
It is really hard to make horror work in a multiplayer format because things get less scary when playing with friends. Well, Valve figured out a way to make it work and make every session feel different. Left 4 Dead 2 and its predecessor will throw waves and waves of enemies at you while changing out set pieces and layouts that'll make you go, wait, that's not how it was last time I played. It manages to keep you on edge regardless of if you're playing solo or with a whole team. It's no wonder fans have been begging for a third game.
Jockey!
The Mortuary Assistant.
Rebecca, great, perfect timing.
You might not think this deserves to end up in the top 20 best of all time, but play for a solid 30 minutes and tell me you aren't more on edge than you've ever been in your life. In today's gaming world, a simple creepy ghost isn't always enough to terrify players. What sets the Mortuary Assistant apart is its chilling setting. As the title suggests, you play as a mortuary assistant working the night shift, which is apparently a thing. Anyone with a fear of death should tread lightly when jumping into this game.
There we go.
PT. There may be no more infamous video game demo in all of gaming history than PT, and part of the reason why it's so infamous is because it was so damn good. PT's brilliance lies in its ability to disorient players, no matter how many times they navigate its labyrinth environment. It's this sense of creeping madness that defines the game's scares, even though its haunting visuals and disturbing events are petrifying on their own. The only thing that makes this game suck is that you literally can't play it anymore unless you get it on eBay and get your hands on a console that still has it downloaded from 2013. Condemned Criminal Origins. Condemned tells the story of a federal investigator tasked with tracking down serial killers, exploring themes that are surprisingly rare in gaming. It leans more towards the psychological thriller territory like Silent Hill rather than ghouls, ghosts, and zombies. This premise works perfectly as the killer's mindsets and motives are reflected in the environment, much like Silent Hill. While none are as chilling as the department store where killers disguise themselves as mannequins, each area's design forces you to delve into the twisted minds of these criminals to stop them. much like Silent Hill. It's truly a gem on its own, but it's also very inspired by a certain game series. Think Quiet Mountain. Darkwood. In Darkwood, you wake up with no memory of who you are, where you are, or what's happening. All you know is that a sinister force relentlessly attacks your cabin at night. To survive these increasingly violent assaults, you must scavenge for supplies, defensive tools, and anything to keep the lights on for just one more night. While the nighttime sequences deliver Darkwood's most intense moments, it's the time spent wandering through the endlessly dark forest in search of supplies that instills a profound sense of hopelessness. Darkwood balances the survival genre and the horror genre perfectly, and deserves far more praise than it gets. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Shadow of Chernobyl.
And assault force. Our guys are there. Let's go. Now.
You might think the scariest part of S.T.A.L.K.E.R. would be the mutants roaming the Chernobyl wastelands. Few experiences are more terrifying than turning a corner and coming face to face with something so horrifying you can't even describe it. But what truly sets this game apart are its survival elements. You feel utterly out of your depth when you're looking at the resources you have, as well as the resources that are available. In S.T.A.L.K.E.R., simply staying alive feels like a challenge, often leaving you questioning why you even bother to keep going. Yet you do. Until Dawn.
Oh, what now? This is locked, Matt. Well, break the door down, will ya?
Whoa, wait a second. We start smashing shit down, he's gonna hear us.
Well, you got any better suggestions?
I don't know.
A lot of these entries are wonderful because they were revolutionary. They either started a new type of game or genre, or perfected it. Until Dawn is one of these games. In Until Dawn, your choices directly determine whether a character lives or dies. You know how horror fans yell at the screen, telling characters to run, turn around, or not go in there? Now you get to see how far that advice will actually take them. While the novelty of this mechanic can sometimes overshadow just how frightening the game is, Until Dawn masterfully uses jump scares to keep players on edge.
I don't know, man. That could work, but I kind of think that maybe we should get back to the lodge for now. I mean, everyone's been split up for so long.
Visage. I'll be totally honest with you guys from the get-go. This entry was going on this list no matter what. It's somewhat of a personal pick, and by that I mean I picked it personally. And by that I mean I ignored and kicked a classic off the top 20 to get this entry in here. But play this game and tell me I'm wrong. While Steam is filled with these types of titles, only a few truly stand out. Visage is the scariest of them. Visage is divided into chapters, each set in a different time period and introducing new central figures, though the protagonist remains the same. By tackling heavy themes and constantly shifting its approach to keep players on edge, Visage creates a deeply unsettling atmosphere and is in my personal top 5 horror games of all time. The Last of Us.
Something right with them. I think they're sick.
What kind of sick?
Jeez. Jimmy!
Dad?
Honey, come here. Come here. Jimmy!
Now, although The Last of Us doesn't make horror its focus, it's undeniably scary, and if we're talking best horror games of all time, we got to acknowledge arguably one of the plain best games of all time in this list. The Last of Us draws from established zombie fiction, building tension through subtle environmental sounds and clever lighting, before hitting you with the 28 Days Later style terror if you make a mistake. The game teaches you to be deliberate with your movements, but what truly makes The Last of Us terrifying is not just the clickers or tricky ladder puzzles, it's the remnants of humanity that are far more unsettling and relatable than we'd like to admit.
There's too many of them! This way! Through the alley!
Alan Wake 2.
I felt a strange pull toward the TV.
give a warm welcome to Mr. Alan Wake. Alan! Good to see you, Alan. Great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Both Alan Wake games are frightening in their own way, but the original 2010 release suffers from repetitive gameplay that eventually undermines its fear factor despite its strong narrative, which I wouldn't traditionally call out, but I gotta pick one, so I gotta be tough. The long-awaited sequel improves on every aspect, including its approach to horror. Unlike many games in the genre, Alan Wake 2 doesn't rely on constant jump scares. Instead, it delivers carefully timed moments of terror that are so well executed they leave players on edge long after they've passed. Outlast. Another entry that defined a genre. Let's talk Outlast. Outlast takes a unique approach to survival horror. While it does limit your resources, your battery-draining camera being both frustrating and your only real tool, survival in Outlast is more about mentally enduring its relentless scares. Some might wonder, what's enjoyable about a game that largely involves hiding and running through darkness? But for genre veterans, Outlast is a test of resolve and strategy. Imagine trying to thread a piece of thread through a small needle while all your ex-girlfriends scream insults into your ear. That's how tense puzzle solving is in Outlast.
Little pig.
Bloodborne. Here's another game on our entry that lives in the same realm as The Last of Us. Sure, it's not blood-curdlingly scary, but it's such a good game with solid horror elements that it definitely earns its place on the best of all time. Bloodborne is filled with human-made beasts, celestial monstrosities, and other horrors straight out of a nightmare. At one point, you face a creature that resembles the biblical accurate spectre of death. Most of the time, though, you find yourself wandering through a plague-ridden town haunted by the consequences of human failure, vividly depicted as abominations that prowl the blood-soaked streets. You know what? I changed my mind. This game is actually really f***ing scary. F.E.A.R.
Dead mother, this is Little Bird. We're on the ground.
F.E.A.R. was released during the peak of the scary little girl trend, which gained traction after The Ring became a hit in the US. Without a doubt, the haunting figure of Alma remains one of the best examples of the creepy child trope in gaming. However, it's easy to overlook that F.E.A.R. was also an innovative action game that raised the bar for enemy AI in first-person shooters. F.E.A.R. has some really cool innovative game mechanics that make it stand out as a phenomenal game, regardless of the horror elements. SOMA. SOMA certainly delivers scares in all the traditional ways, being created by the same team behind Amnesia. You can expect plenty of frightening visuals and expertly timed jump scares. However, SOMA is the kind of horror game that gets under your skin in deeper ways, pun intended. By the time you reach SOMA's incredible ending, you'll be left staring at the screen wondering if you'll ever reclaim the part of yourself that this game took away. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. Fatal Frame 2 adopts a unique and brilliant approach to confrontation in video game combat. Instead of traditional weapons, the game equips you with a special camera capable of repelling spirits. And I know what you're thinking, how many times is this going to be done? I'm worried this joke won't land, nobody's ever done that. This intimate style of combat, combined with the grotesque design of the spirits, leaves you feeling uncertain about your ability to defend yourself, even though you're armed with the most effective weapon for the situation.
Maya?
Why?
Little Nightmares. There's something particularly unsettling about navigating a sinister world as a small child like Six in Little Nightmares. Set in the moor, players will face various foes intent on capturing her. Armed only with her yellow raincoat, Six must rely on her ability to escape these dangers. With an intriguing story and a host of imaginative monster designs, Little Nightmares gets under your skin, maintaining a constant sense of tension without relying on jump scares. The second game improves upon the original in each and every way, but we had to praise the OG game and all of its beautifully terrifying DLC. The Evil Within. To be completely honest, The Evil Within falls short in several aspects. However, when it comes to scares, The Evil Within certainly delivers. This relentless horror game features a range of funhouse-style scares that are both effective and darkly amusing. The second game lands harder than the first by improving upon everything it brings to the table. Shinji Mikami is a master of the genre, and his genius earns his game the 5th spot on this list. Alien Isolation.
We need to move. This way. Get down.
This is bullshit, man. We should be looking for a way off.
Are you crazy? There's no way off. At least we're safe down here.
It's surprising that it took so long for a proper alien horror game to be made, and by proper, I mean not shit. Alien Isolation utilizes a single xenomorph more effectively than any other piece of alien media since the original film. Imagine that feeling when you spot a big spider in your room, but it scurries away and you have no idea where it went. Now, swap that spider for a xenomorph lying in wait, ready to pounce as soon as it reappears. That's the essence of the Alien Isolation experience. This game, from start to finish, is so perfectly crafted, it should end up as a yearly replay for every gamer. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 is arguably the best entry in the franchise. While there are several strong contenders for that title, Resident Evil 7 successfully revitalized pure horror in the series in the most impactful way possible. It reminded us that everything was going to be just fine in this beloved series. The game's opening moments are among the scariest ever created. A great survival horror game should instill a sense of helplessness, and Resident Evil 7 does just that. The series wasn't scared to go in a new direction. They took a risk, and boy did it pay off. They won Best VR Game at the Game Awards and ended up number 3 on this list. Which do you think they're more proud of? Dead Space.
Where's Max?
All right, you heard the lady. Take us in. Let's see what needs fixing.
Gravity tethers engaged. Automatic docking procedures a go.
What the hell?
Dead Space is another entry on our list that defined a genre. It introduces so many new concepts to gaming that are still used today. It's honestly shocking just how many games from this year have been influenced by mechanics that were introduced in Dead Space, and that is what makes Dead Space truly brilliant. While the game's atmosphere and exceptional sound design have rightfully received acclaim over the years, Dead Space really stands out due to how its enemy design impacts both the combat and the storytelling. You'll never forget the first time you were caught off guard by a necromorph playing dead. Everyone remembers their first sleepy necro. Terrifying.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 has established itself as arguably the most intimidating horror game ever made. The game's intricate psychological narrative distorts your grip on reality, while the visceral terror of entities like Pyramid Head ensures you won't find solace in any answers you might discover. Few games can scar you quite like Silent Hill 2. The original and the remake both leave players with the exact same feeling towards its conclusion, and it's a feeling that has stuck with most players for over 20 years. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos.